Well, I can't say I'm not happy with that result this week, but we'll get to that later. Hello, I'm Adrian and welcome to Rabona TV, where today we're going to recap what went down in the UCL. And by the way, on Friday, we will be reacting to the Champions League quarterfinals draw live as it happens here on the channel. So if you can make it out and you want to experience that with me and some other subscribers, then come on through. Starts at 7 a.m. Eastern time. Let me double check that. I believe so. RIP to the West Coasters in North America who will not be able to attend, unless you're insane. And before we get to that, we got to thank our sponsors once again, as OneFootball have come in clutch, like Darwin Nunez this week. With OneFootball, you can stay in the know on all of the teams, players, and competitions that mean the most to you by simply following them in the app and watch your homepage get packed with all of the latest news. On top of that, you can relive the action of matches you caught or take in the highlights of matches you missed, listen to interviews, in-depth behind-the-scenes footage, track the transfers of potential signings for the club you support, and even watch matches live right inside the app, man. To get access to all of this for free, just use the link in the description or scan this QR code and you will be well on your way. Thank you to anyone who downloads it. You'll be helping me in the process. So let's get started. Tuesday night was all about defensive organization, and if there's one team that consistently has excelled with this over the last decade, quite literally, that would be Atletico Madrid under Diego Simeone. Atletico's defense hasn't been the issue for the most part this season, as I highlighted in this video. They still have faced the fewest shots in La Liga. They still have the fewest expected goals against in La Liga. They are set up fine, but perhaps one of the biggest keys to their defense over the years had been Jan Oblak and his superhuman ability to keep the ball out of the net. And he had a terrible start to this season, and it wasn't until about 2-3 weeks ago that we started to see the old Jan Oblak coming back. Atletico knew that they would have to suffer, and suffer they did at times in this match. In fact, Elenga's failure to convert United's best opportunity of the match, maybe, came just after 12 minutes or so. The forehead of Oblak keeping the ball out, but the rest of the saves he had to make were relatively straightforward, except for maybe in the second half. And at the other end, De Gea had to make an incredible save on Rodrigo de Paul minutes later, a vicious strike that was dropping into that top corner before he got a paw to it. I think Atletico were a bit guilty of almost giving United too much respect in this one. It wasn't until around the 25th, 30th minute where Atleti, in their bogus Where's Waldo kits, tried to really attack, which is strange, as this United backline is kind of there for the taking. João Felix finished off a great attacking move, but the man who supplied the service, Llorente, was offside. The right call though. João Felix did play a role in the build-up to Atletico's goal that ended up standing on the day, started by the fantastic Rodrigo de Paul, once again, one of his best performances for Atleti thus far in my opinion. João Felix chopped the ball into the path of Griezmann, nice partnership building between those two, and Griezmann picked out Renan Lodi at the back post to guide it into the ground and past De Gea for 1-0. While Bruno tested Oblak later in the second half, Atleti played just as well attacking-wise as United, who weren't exactly offensive behemoths. For every Elanga or Varane opportunity, there's one for De Paul, etc. If you want to put a number on it, their expected goals were the exact same in the second half, different by just 0.01. And honestly, this match was another reminder that while United are a little bit better under Rangnick, that form towards the end of Ollie's tenure was truly shambolic, of course, but while they have improved in some ways under Rangnick, this squad is proving under each manager that they just don't have it. Rangnick has to shoulder the blame as well, of course, but when there isn't something truly spectacular happening from one of the individuals in this side, if it isn't Bruno Fernandes, who isn't nearly as influential anymore, or if it isn't Ronaldo playing a blinder as he did against Tottenham recently, they make like the items that were tossed at Simeone by the end of it. They bottle it. This isn't a pile on, but if United's season has proven one thing thus far, it's that they are unremarkable across the board. Attack, midfield, and defense. They invest in different positions for sure, and you'd expect a better performance from them, but manager after manager is failing to get them to really play anything resembling attractive football. Consistently, that is. And when they come up against a defense that sits low like this, they struggle. That is incredibly worrying. That points to what we already knew, a lack of direction behind the scenes, a lack of planning, and instead just having a reactionary approach to everything. What exactly are United building toward at the moment? It begs the question of, like what we asked of PSG, but for different reasons, of course. But where do Manchester United go from here? They went all in on Ronaldo, and Cavani as their main strikers, while Martial was sent to Spain, and while Ronaldo is a supreme finisher, and Cavani can be when he's fit, the future of United is very short term in that position. How long do you go with a back line that boasts Harry Maguire, Varane? I mean, when I brought up last summer that the best of Varane felt like it had passed already, we had United fans attacking me saying that I have an agenda against anything United. He isn't the weak point by any means, but not the revolution that they need in defense. And when you look to the kind of signings that City and Liverpool are making, it's just smarter business. Alvarez coming in on the cheap at City, Luis Diaz for around 45 million plus bonuses, City potentially getting Haaland later on for 75 million. I mean, hindsight's 2020, United could have turned out great with signings like Varane, Sancho, and Ronaldo in one window. But the proof is in the pudding, the proof is in the performances, and a round of 16 exit and a middling domestic campaign, I mean, it feels like they're almost eternally in transition. It's hard to see a bright future. It's been hard to see a bright future for them because it doesn't feel like they are planning for such very well. Some of the younger players that were meant to be the bright future, Rashford, Martial, etc., seem to be on their way out. Well, Elanga looks like one of the bright spots, but he could head down the Rashford route if there isn't sufficient support around him.
Now, the big asterisk next to what I'm saying is that this is a reaction to how they have been run in the last decade, and maybe with changes behind the scenes like Myrtle, which already happened, and Rangnick doing what he does best in a consultancy role, makes sporting decisions behind the scenes. It will lead to a much more holistic approach and a clear sporting plan that will breed great results. We don't know. There's a high possibility that it yields that result.
As an incredibly wealthy club, they will have success in the future, but the question is when, and what will this new measure of success for a club like United look like? Because it's going to be different from what it was before. The extent of that success and whether it will be sustained success is the real question though, and with the way the club is run currently in that reactionary manner, it's hard to see how they would achieve this. As things stand now, they will go 5 years without a single trophy. The first time they have done this since 1974. Now this pleases me. Of course this result pleases me. Was it a surprise? Of course it was. You cannot look at the form of both sides domestically and in the Champions League and consider the fact that Ajax absolutely destroyed the Portuguese champion Sporting, team we can't beat, and not say that this wasn't a mismatch or something close to it. On paper, of course, on paper. And speaking of on paper, as far as good all-around performance from Benfica, that only came in the second half of the first leg. In that half, Benfica were incredibly dangerous on the break, and they looked as though they could score a few goals from open play. That wasn't the case in this match, not in the first half, which was terrible, and not really in the second half, beyond when Yaremchuk broke through after we were leading already. The reason for that? Ajax basically did everything right to snuff us out and dominate pretty much every vertical, but the one thing they failed to do was finish what few opportunities they had, while we also have to give a ton of props to Benfica's back line, Julian Weigl in midfield, and hey, Maite when he came on in the second half, as he was also integral to our defensive performance. Adel Taarabt was not doing anything going forward or defensively in the first half, and Ajax were dominant in the midfield because of it. I mean, Edson Alvarez was a monster in there. Gravenberch was dribbling everybody, but Benfica stood strong. When you look at the opportunities Ajax had, they weren't exactly fantastic chances. Vlachodimos only had to make 2 saves in this match, 2. The rest of Ajax's opportunities were either blocked by our titans, Vertonghen and Otamendi, as they strangled each other, or were squandered. Alvarez in particular had 2 decent opportunities from headers that he blew in the first half. For all of their possession and crosses into the box, Ajax had an XG of just 1.29. And in fact, in the second half, Benfica's was equal to that, based just off of that one Darwin opportunity. And when I say they dominated, I mean they truly did. The goal that Benfica scored was a perfectly executed free kick. Sure, some will question Onana flying out, a ball he would never win, but I don't know what other choice he had. If you watch it back yourself, and you'll see that even if he stayed in goal, it likely would have gone in regardless. But I guess we can't say that definitively, so I guess we'll never know. This was a typical, if you don't take your opportunities, you will be punished kind of match for Ajax. And in speaking to a lot of Ajax supporters and creators after this match, shout out to We Talk Ajax, this has been a commonality with them at times. When they don't score in the first half, they suffer in the second. And with Benfica basically waiting for an opportunity to hurt them from set pieces, Because look, Ajax have excellent center backs in Martinez and Timber, but it's easy to beat them in the air when they are quite literally 5'7" and 5'8" respectively. That's a massive mismatch when you're going up against Darwin Núñez, who's 6'1". He'll beat them in the air every single time while Alvarez is busy handling Otamendi and Vertonghen. And that's not a knock on short center backs. We stan a short king, but not when they're defending against the 6'1" Darwin Núñez. Oh yeah, and the foul that led to Benfica's goal was soft, but Alvarez snatching at and clipping Ramos slightly is always going to force a decision out of the referee. It was silly from Alvarez, but yeah, I acknowledge that if that foul went against my team, I'd be pissed. Overall though, most Ajax fans I spoke to had their anger pointed in the right direction at their own team and their inability to create genuine chances and finish off the ones that they had. I also want to give a shout out to Verissimo, who got all of his substitutions right. Maite was integral to stopping Ajax and breaking up their play in that second half, while when Yaremchuk came on, Benfica started winning the ball further up the pitch instead of in their own 18. Overall, not a great performance from Benfica, who couldn't even transition in the first half and would simply give the ball back to Ajax upon winning it. But they played heroically in defense, and they took their chance when it came. There was a moment in this match. There was a moment in which our minds started to run with the possibility of an absolute classic. After going 2-0 down from the first leg, Lille won a penalty, thanks to a Jorginho handball, stonewall penalty, as his arm was in a place it had no business being in, and Burak Yilmaz hit a stunning penalty into that top corner. That was nice. That was the moment, but it was snatched away quite quickly, to be honest, as the defensive deficiencies that Lille have exhibited all season showed their face again, as Christian Pulisic was all alone and the American rolled it into the corner. Clean finish, but questions to be asked at the defense for sure. From there, with Chelsea 3-1 up, it was hard to picture how Lille would come back from that, and they didn't. Sure, there were other moments that would have filled neutrals with some hope of a great finish to this match, such as Zeka hitting the post at one point in the second half, but with Azpilicueta making it 2-1 on the night and 4-1 on aggregate, Lille were dusted. Done and subsequently dusted. Unfortunate for them, but with how their season has been going, it wasn't really a surprise, was it? The disparity in quality between the two sides and the managers is just massive. Speaking of, according to Nizar Kinsella, Thomas Tuchel has now set the record for the most wins within the manager's first 50 Champions League matches at 32, which takes him past the former holder, Zinedine Zidane. Chelsea will continue to be an incredibly difficult side in this competition. I mean, don't expect the sanctions to slow them down, really. I spoke about this on my live stream. Chelsea will be fine. Some other billionaire or billionaire consortium will have their bid accepted. Another owner that can keep up with, for the most part, Abramovich's business model at the club, and Chelsea won't fall off, as others have predicted. They may fall off a little bit, but not to the extent that others think they will. They're not going to become a mid-table team all of a sudden. And finally, we have Juve versus Villarreal, a match that was a snooze fest in the reverse fixture. And the first half was a bit snoozy, but overall not horrible. Juve could rightfully feel as though they should have been leading at the break, as Rulli in the Villarreal goal was forced into some excellent saves. I mean, those saves on Vlahovic and Morata were something else, especially that point-blank one on Vlahovic. But Villarreal had a couple of decent strikes at goal as well in that first half. Lo Celso nearly bent one around his man and inside the post, but it just went wide. Very close from Gio Lo Celso. Overall, Villarreal making it to halftime at 0-0 would have felt like a victory for them, especially for Unai Emery, a man who is as pragmatic as they come, except he met his match, to be fair. Allegri was probably thrilled with 0-0, albeit a bit frustrated that Rulli was ruining their day a bit. And then the second half came along, and the midfield battle continued. This was the tale of this match until Unai Emery started to make substitutions. This was where he won the battle of the managers. He brought on Chukwueze and Coquelin in the 65th minute and Gerard Moreno in the 74th with almost his first touch of the ball. Moreno played in Coquelin, and with Rugani going to the ground and catching the French midfielder on the leg, it was a penalty. Was it an oversell by Coquelin? For sure, but was it a penalty? 100% every day of the week. And when the referee watches it just a couple of times, then you know it's going to be given, and it was. So the two substitutes linked up to win the penalty, and Moreno, one of the substitutes, converted it shortly after. It was a brutal penalty though, wasn't it? Szczesny nearly kept that out. It just snuck in that post. And once that went in, you knew what would happen. Juve had 12 minutes to find a goal. They were going to throw men forward, and they were going to leave opportunities at the back for Villarreal. One such occasion led to a corner, and Pau Torres doubled the lead. I hate to say it, but once again, just as it was in the last match, Matthijs de Ligt was to blame for this second goal. Yes, in the last game, Adrien Rabiot didn't track back, but de Ligt had followed a stupid, meaningless run that posed no danger to Juve, leaving that gaping hole for Parejo to run into. This time, de Ligt was supposed to be following his man Torres, but hang on. What's going on here, Matthijs? What are you doing? De Ligt allowed Torres to slip away from him and convert that chance. That's poor from him. And it got worse. Juve pushing forward again. Villarreal with a bizarre attack in which they had the ball in Juve's box for about 7 or 8 seconds. Moreno squares to Danjuma, and his strike was blocked by de Ligt's arm intentionally, so a yellow and a penalty, and Danjuma made it 3-0. Nightmare for Juve. Horrible from them in that second half, and bliss for Unai Emery, who absolutely deserves our respect. He got his substitutions down perfectly, and their transition from defense to offense were consistently well constructed and executed. You could tell they were automations that they have been working on in training. Solid defensively for the most part, bar those opportunities for Juve in the first half. They waited to pounce on Juve's mistakes, and they destroyed them when those mistakes were made, with de Ligt as the weak link back there. Juve's project of rebuilding, because it is a project still, will continue. But no doubt this is pretty damning for Allegri. It won't be fatal for him by any means. He's not going to lose his job, nor should he. But this Juventus side is looking like the Juventus that he left, uninspired and in need of a spark. That will do it for today. Appreciate you guys watching with me, and I hope that you'll be able to join me for the quarterfinal draw tomorrow right here on the channel. Other than that, stay tuned for the reaction to my predictions, which is coming soon. Take care.